Imagine, like a developer is about to write the first line of code for a multi-million-dollar software project.
Right, a huge investment.
Exactly. They're sitting at their desk ready to build, but the blueprint they're looking at, well, it was drawn up on a whiteboard like 6 months ago by some executive who has already left the company.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Yeah. And the actual business requirements, those live in a locked Excel file that literally nobody seems to have the password to.
I mean, that disconnect right there is arguably the most expensive problem in modern corporate tech.
Totally.
We build these incredibly precise, data-driven software systems. But the justification for why we're building them, the strategy, the risk assessments, the compliance checks.
It's all just held together by digital duct tape.
Exactly. It's a mess.
I mean, it's just absolute organizational chaos. If you're listening to this and you've ever worked in a large enterprise, you know the pain. You're swimming in this sea of scattered Word documents, outdated Confluence pages, and PowerPoint slides that absolutely do not match the reality of what the engineering team is actually building.
Right. The reality on the ground is completely different.
It's a massive, painful disconnect. But there is a solution out there that we're exploring today.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are looking at a really fascinating GitHub repository for something called ArcKit.
Yeah, specifically version 4.0.2.
Right, and it's an enterprise architecture governance and vendor procurement toolkit.
Which I know is a bit of a mouthful.
Just a bit.
But what's fascinating here is the core promise. It's revolutionary, really. It aims to fix this broken system by combining artificial intelligence with the kind of strict version control that software developers have already been using for decades. So if you're sitting there right now, maybe prepping for a major management meeting or trying to wrangle some chaotic internal project, or honestly, if you're just insanely curious about how AI is fundamentally changing corporate strategy, this toolkit offers a massive paradigm shift in how we organize information.
Yeah, and the truly compelling part of this shift is this concept of governance as code.
Governance as code.
Right, because traditionally governance is this very messy human process, It's about deciding what to build and proving it's a good idea.
And it usually involves a lot of meetings.
So many meetings. But ArcKit takes that highly subjective process and applies the rigorous logic of software development to it. So we're moving from a world of scattered, static documents to a systematic AI-assisted workflow. And it all lives securely in a Git repository.
It's kind of like trying to build a skyscraper with blueprints drawn on napkins, right? And those napkins are scattered across like 5 different cafes.
That is exactly what traditional enterprise architecture feels like.
Right. You get inconsistent governance, manual bias when you're picking vendors, and you just completely lose track of why you even started the project in the first place. But ArcKit, it brings everyone into a single master digital model. Now, I do want to clarify something, because I know some developers use a tool called SpecKit.
Oh, sure. SpecKit is popular.
Right, which helps generate 0 to 1 code. But ArcKit is playing an entirely different game here, isn't it?
Oh, completely different audience. I mean, SpecKit is for product managers and developers who are focused on feature development, right?
Yeah.
Getting the actual application code written.
Right, the actual software.
But ArcKit is built specifically for enterprise architects, strategists, procurement teams. Its goal isn't to write the software at all. Its goal is to generate the governance, the documentation, and the strategic justification.
Okay, got it.
And the entire philosophy driving this Git-based, template-driven workflow is traceability.
Traceability, meaning like if a business requirement changes on day 40 of the project, you don't have to manually hunt down every single risk register and design file to update the paperwork.
Precisely. And the downstream effect of that is massive. In a traditional setup, humans spend countless hours just doing administrative cleanup when a strategy pivots.
Oh, the busy work is endless.
It is. But with ArcKit, you're forced into a very strict discipline through 16 highly structured phases. And because everything is version controlled, if a core requirement changes, the AI instantly flags the gap across all your documentation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The AI handles the heavy lifting of generating and updating those complex files, which basically frees up the human architects to focus purely on making the high-level strategic decisions.
Which naturally leads us to how this is actually executed. Because, I mean, it's easy to say that AI organizes the strategy, but if we just let a large language model run wild, it's going to hallucinate a 100-page fantasy document.
Oh, absolutely. It would just make things up.
Right. So how does ArcKit actually put a leash on the AI to prevent that?
Well, it does that through really strict command line mechanics. ArcKit uses 57 very specific slash commands to drive that entire 16-phase lifecycle.
Wait, 57 commands?
Yeah, 57. You have commands like slash ArcKit.plan or slash ArcKit.SOBC. And the sequence of those commands is not just a suggestion, it's mandatory logic.
So you can't just skip to the end and say, hey, AI, write me a business case.
No, the system will actively block you.
Yeah.
For example, you must run the slash ArcKit.stakeholders command first.
Okay, why?
Because it forces you to mathematically map out the underlying drivers and the smart goals of the people actually involved. Only after that is completed are you allowed to run the slash ArcKit.SOBC command.
Ah, and SOBC, that's the strategic outline business case.
Exactly.
I actually saw in the repository that this relies on the HM Treasury Greenbook 5-case model, which sounds incredibly formal.
It is formal, but it's a brilliant integration. The Greenbook isn't just like a formatting choice. It's a highly structured way to justify spending. It forces you to prove a project is strategically necessary, economically viable, commercially feasible, financially affordable, and actually manageable. ArcKit literally won't let you build that robust business case if you haven't first mapped out who the stakeholders are.
That makes total sense, and I imagine the same discipline applies to risk assessment.
Oh, absolutely. That's the slash ArcKit.risk command,
Right.
which follows the HM Treasury Orange Book framework. It forces the user to categorize risks across 6 specific areas, like strategic, operational, or technology risks.
Okay.
And then it demands that you apply the 4T's response framework.
The 4 T's.
Yeah, when you identify a risk, you cannot just write down a bad thing might happen. You have to declare your action. Are you going to tolerate the risk, treat it, transfer it, or terminate it?
Okay, let me push back on this for a second, though, because if I'm just typing a slash command and the AI is spitting out a highly technical 50-page business case or this massive risk register, aren't we just automating bureaucracy?
I get why you'd ask that.
Like, are we just generating a mountain of corporate fluff that literally nobody is actually going to read?
That is definitely the inherent danger with basic generative AI. It loves to create volume just for the sake of it. But ArcKit isn't generating fluff because it's actively mapping dependencies.
What do you mean by dependencies in this context?
Well, the constraints are what make the output valuable. Take the slash ArcKit.strategy command. It is the only command in the entire toolkit that requires 2 mandatory inputs before it will even run.
Which are?
Your architecture principles and your stakeholder analysis. The AI takes those specific inputs and synthesizes an executive-level strategy. It ensures that you literally cannot build a strategy without first defining your principles and deeply understanding who you are building it for.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's enforcing logical consistency, not just creating word count.
Here's where it gets really interesting, at least for me. Because the AI has to pull all of this off without just making up fake data to fill in the blanks. And we all know large language models can be incredibly confident while being completely objectively wrong.
So true. The hallucinations are a real issue.
Right. So what engine is actually powering this to ensure accuracy?
Well, while ArcKit can function with the Gemini and Codex command line interfaces, the premier experience, the one the developers really optimize for, is Claude Code, specifically version 2.1.71 and above.
Okay, and why that specific version? Is there a particular feature?
Yes, it's the introduction of autonomous research agents and hooks.
Hooks, like coding hooks?
Kind of. The concept of a hook here is essentially an automated guardrail. When you submit a prompt to the AI, a hook can automatically correct your file names to match the strict governance standard of your company.
Oh, that's handy.
Right. Or it can silently inject the entire project's context into your prompt so the AI knows exactly what artifacts already exist and you don't have to manually explain it every single time.
That saves so much time. And then there are the Model Context Protocol servers, the MCPs. This seems to be how the toolkit connects to the outside world to stay grounded in reality, right?
That connection is vital. During the slash ArcKit.research phase, the AI doesn't just guess based on whatever training data it had a year ago.
Thank goodness.
Right. It uses MCP servers to securely pull live, authoritative documentation directly from AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. It can even do dozens of live web searches to find external data sources using the slash ArcKit.datascout command.
And what is wild to me is that it does all of this research while generating actual visual architecture diagrams. Like, it uses something called Mermaid to create C4 models and data flows.
Mermaid is fantastic for this.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't used Mermaid, it basically means the AI writes text-based code that automatically draws the system architecture diagrams for you.
Yeah.
So your developers don't have to waste like 3 hours dragging and dropping boxes and arrows in Visio.
Nobody wants to do that.
No one. But the visual element that really stood out to me was the Wardley maps.
Oh, Wardley mapping is incredibly powerful. It tracks the evolution of technology from Genesis, which is, a brand new, untested idea, all the way to a commodity, like electricity or standard cloud storage.
The best way to visualize Wardley mapping, I think, is to imagine you're looking at an empty plot of land. You aren't just deciding where to build your house today, you're predicting where the city is going to lay the new massive highway 3 years from now.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, because by mapping that evolution, you know whether you should build a driveway to connect to the future highway, or if you need to buy a helicopter because you're going to be completely stranded. It basically tells you whether you should build a custom software solution internally or just buy something off the shelf because it's about to become a cheap commodity.
Exactly. It's highly strategic.
Mm.
But the technical reality of asking an AI to do that kind of complex predictive mapping while simultaneously generate a massive governance documents is that you hit AI token limits extremely quickly.
Oh, right, because it can only output so much text at once.
Yeah. A model like Claude currently has a 32,000 token output limit.
Which sounds like a massive number, but if you're writing a comprehensive multi-year enterprise architecture strategy, I mean, you'd burn through that in minutes.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
So ArcKit uses a highly clever workaround. It's called the right tool strategy.
How does that work?
Well, instead of the AI printing all that text out into the chat interface, which eats up your conversational token limit instantly, the AI is instructed to use a specialized tool to write the output directly to the markdown files on your computer's hard drive.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It completely bypasses the conversational memory limit.
Oh, that is fascinating. So the autonomous agent basically acts like a worker who leaves the conversation, goes off into its own little isolated room, does 50 web searches, reads a bunch of dense cloud documentation, synthesizes the final answer, and then just drops the finished document onto your desk.
Exactly. Without clogging up the memory of your main conversation. It keeps the core conversational memory incredibly clean. And that allows for deep, exhaustive research without crashing the system or making the AI forget what you were talking about 10 minutes ago.
Okay, so theoretically, the technology is brilliant. It's a superpower. But how do we know this framework actually holds up in the real world? Because, it's one thing to generate a nice-looking strategy document in a vacuum. It is an entirely different thing to survive a brutal real-world compliance audit.
Well, to test that, we have to look at the environment ArcKit was actually stress-tested in, which is the UK government.
Okay.
The toolkit includes highly specific compliance commands designed to survive public sector scrutiny. And that is famously rigorous.
Oh, definitely.
There's the /archit.cop command, which automatically assesses your project against all 13 points of the UK's technology code of practice.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's also /archit.service assessment, which prepares the architecture for the grueling government digital service standards.
Okay, instead of just listing off features, let's look at one of the demo repositories they published to see this in action. Because they used ArcKit to build out the architecture for an HMRC tax assistant chatbot.
Right. A real-world application.
Yeah. This is a system that handles bilingual support. But, more importantly, it handles highly sensitive, personally identifiable financial information. How does the toolkit actually evaluate something with that much inherent risk?
It uses a dedicated ethics and privacy suite. Running the /archit.i playbook generates a responsible AI assessment. But the real heavy hitter here is how it handles data protection impact assessments.
The DPIAs.
Right. When the AI analyzes that tax assistant chatbot, it runs a 9-criteria automated screening process for UK GDPR compliance.
So it's actively looking for red flags.
Exactly. It actively looks at the architecture and asks things like, are you processing sensitive data on a large scale? Or are you using AI for algorithmic decision-making that actually affects citizens? If it flags yes, it automatically generates the required mitigation strategies right into the architecture plan.
And this brings up an interesting point for anyone listening who, doesn't work for the government. Why should a listener at a mid-sized private bank or a fast-moving tech startup care about an open-source toolkit that is so heavily dialed into UK government compliance?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, The UK government has some of the most stringent, heavily scrutinized, and openly documented digital standards in the entire world.
That's true.
If an architecture framework can handle that level of intense scrutiny, navigating complex data privacy laws, ethical AI standards, and integrating with massive legacy national systems, it can easily handle a private enterprise's governance needs.
Right.
It is the ultimate stress test. Honestly, if it's robust enough for the National Tax Authority, your internal vendor evaluation is going to be a walk in the park.
Speaking of vendor evaluations, we have these bulletproof GDPR-compliant blueprints now. But a brilliant Wardley map and a perfect blueprint are completely useless if no one ever pours the concrete.
Right.
How does ArcKit actually bridge the gap between the executive strategists coming up with the ideas and the developers who have to, build the thing?
This is phase 8 of the toolkit, which focuses heavily on procurement and sprints. First, for the procurement side, the /archit.evaluate command creates a completely bias-free scoring framework.
Bias-free, how?
Well, it takes the exact technical requirements generated back in phase 5 and does a side-by-side, totally objective comparison of different vendor proposals.
And for public sector users, I saw it integrates directly with the UK digital marketplace using the /archit.gcloud search command. So it can do live market searches for actual cloud services, finding the approved suppliers and their current prices.
Yeah, that integration is seamless. But the feature that truly bridges the gap to reality for the engineering team is the /archit.backlog command.
Oh, this is the one that blew my mind.
It's incredible. It takes all those high-level business requirements, the functional requirements, the data models, all that heavy, abstract strategy, and transforms them into standard user stories. And it organizes them into development sprints using Moscow prioritization.
And Moscow, for anyone who hasn't used it, stands for must have, should have, could have, won't have. It's basically a way to ruthlessly prioritize what gets built first.
Exactly. And according to the repository data, manually breaking down an enterprise strategy into actionable developer tickets is traditionally like a 4 to 6 week process.
Yeah, easily.
ArcKit cuts that down to 3 to 5 days.
Wow.
That is a 75% time savings. It packages those user stories into a JSON or CSV file that you can drop directly into Trello or Jira.
That's huge.
It even goes a step further with the /archit.servicenow command. That designs ITIL-aligned runbooks for incident management and service-level agreements, and it derives the technical details straight from those mermaid architecture diagrams we talked about earlier.
So what does this all mean? It's kind of like taking a beautifully painted abstract landscape, which is the executive vision and the strategic goals, and automatically turning it into a highly precise paint-by-numbers grid.
Yes.
The developers in the IT support desk know exactly which color goes in which box to recreate that executive vision. The AI basically acts as the universal translator between the abstract strategy and the granular execution.
And the mechanism ensuring that the paint-by-numbers grid actually matches the original landscape is the /archit.traceability command.
Right, bring it back to traceability.
It automatically generates a matrix that connects every single line of code or every single dollar spent on a vendor directly back to the original stakeholder goals identified way back in phase 2.
So no more orphaned projects.
Exactly. A team literally cannot spend money or development time on a feature that doesn't tie directly back to a core strategic driver.
It forces total accountability. Okay, to wrap this up, what we are looking at with ArcKit is a toolkit that takes the absolute chaos of enterprise architecture, the scattered documents, the misaligned engineering teams, the vendor procurement nightmares, and turns it into a sleek, AI-assisted, highly traceable Git workflow. It's a game changer. It really is. It saves an immense amount of time while enforcing a rigorous, almost mathematical level of quality control across an organization. And if you are sitting there right now prepping to evaluate a massive software vendor this afternoon, or maybe you're plotting a multi-year cloud migration roadmap, this concept of governance as code is a superpower. You can start applying it immediately to how you organize information and justify your decisions.
This raises an important question, though, kind of a philosophical one. Right now, ArcKit uses AI to document and trace human strategy, right? We input the guiding principles, we define the stakeholders, and the AI just keeps us honest and hyper-organized.
Right, it's just following our lead.
But as these autonomous research agents get better at Wardley mapping, as they get better at live market analysis and predicting where technology commodities are heading,
Hmm.
What happens when the AI starts pointing out that your company's core strategic drivers are fundamentally flawed?
Oh, wow.
Could the next iteration of enterprise architecture tools move from just organizing our blueprints to actually telling us we are building the wrong building altogether?
Now that is something for you to mull over. We will leave you with that thought.